I seriously doubt it will be reduced. But let's restate the case. Jerry Jones repeatedly has stated there is nothing there.
Yep.
Police departments in Columbus, Ohio, Fort Lauderdale, Florida, just to remind everyone, investigated the accuser's accusations in both cities, and neither opted to charge Ezekiel Elliott. And Lisa Friel, who was appointed or hired in 2014 as the chief advisor on domestic violence to Roger Goodell, refused to sign off on this accuser's credibility. Yet, in this appeals hearing, the deck is stacked against Ezekiel Elliott because the NFLPA asked for an independent arbiter. Nope. Roger Goodell appointed the league man, Harold Henderson, who's heard most of these cases.
He's independent, although he worked for the NFL for 20 years.
Thank you very much. The NFLPA asked for Zeke's accuser, Tiffany Thompson, to be made available at this appeals hearing for cross-examination. Nope. Request denied. The NFLPA then asked for the league's notes on all of its findings on this case to be made available during this appeals process. Nope. Request denied. So now we just have to sit back and wait for Harold Henderson to go through the motions of, I think, upholding the 6 games that were ruled by one Roger Goodell, who has yet to speak directly to Ezekiel Elliott or to his accuser about the merits of this case. So, as I've said all along, explain to me, how do you reduce a domestic violence suspension? Do you say, well, okay, you're right, you only hit her 5 times, so okay, we'll give you only 5 times, so we reduce from 6 to 5 games. You can't do that on domestic violence. And just for the record, Harold Henderson did reduce Greg Hardy's suspension from 10 games all the way down to 4 games, but even though his accuser had won the bench trial in North Carolina, when it went to the jury trial, she failed to show, and the authorities said that they were told that she had accepted money not to testify in the jury trial.
Correct.
So I guess there was a case to be made, okay, you should reduce because of that. I don't know. I don't know what the ruling was exactly, but he did reduce on that one. But bottom line here is what I've said from the start. Jerry Jones, backing the NFLPA, poised to file a lawsuit. And guess who has already been appointed as the lead prosecutor here, the lead lawyer in this?
Kessler.
Jeffrey Kessler. Longtime thorn in the NFL side, the leader of the Brady legal team in Deflategate. So here we go again with another Deflategate. And they will argue just what Brady argued, procedural violations and missteps. Will that stand up in court? Will there be time enough to get an injunction to keep Ezekiel Elliott for game number 1, 2, 3, 4? I don't know. I'm going to doubt that because, once again, the NFL will be able to argue, hey, in the last collective bargaining agreement, you gave us the right to rule on any misconduct, however we want to rule, right?
Yep, Article 46.
Article 46. So I guess in the end, is it possible that Harold Henderson would reduce from 6 to 5 just to show a judge in a potential lawsuit that he tried to compromise ahead of the lawsuit? Maybe. I think that would really look bad for the NFL when it comes to domestic violence. So in the end, I think the lawsuit will be filed. Given what happened with Brady, he did win in the first round of court,
Correct.
Judge Berman's court, then went to appeals court, and he lost in that jurisdiction, 2-1. So I'm just going to guess that he's going to have to serve a 6-game suspension sometime this year. It could be sooner, it could be later. Maybe it'll be a little bit later, but I would rather take my medicine up front. So I'm going to say it stands at 6 games, and I would just prefer Zeke just get it out of the way at the start of the season.
Skip, I just want to go ahead and put this out here because I think sometimes when we're talking about these cases and you're arguing one side, you might be trying to say Zeke is not guilty and something didn't happen. So I'm not trying to excuse what Zeke did or didn't do. I'm not trying to take a side here. I'm trying to be as objective as I possibly can. But Skip, looking at this, first of all, I don't see how they came to this conclusion to begin with, given her inconsistencies in her testimony. Now, Skip, there were some text messages between her and her girlfriend where she was like, well, you tell the police this. And I think that is why the police in both jurisdictions said we can't.
Agreed.
Because we can't do this, but the NFL has such a low bar, Skip, it doesn't, the standard in a normal court proceeding or investigation is so high as opposed to what the NFL asks of the situation. Skip, the only thing he can hope for, and I believe he will get it reduced between somewhere in 2 to 4 games, he can say the inconsistencies in your policy. You said all domestic violence policies would start with a 6-game suspension.
Yep.
Mitigating circumstances could move that up or down. Zeke said just last year, Josh Brown, a guy that told you he abused his wife said he abused her, and you intervened at the Pro Bowl one year and moved the wife. You gave him 1 game. So how can you give him 1 game when he told you he did it, she told you he did it, you intervened, but here we have all these inconsistencies and stories here, and I get 6. That's the only thing he can hope for, Skip. I just wish Jerry would stop talking because he's doing himself no favor, Skip. You remember last year you said if Zeke were to get suspended, he'd be very upset and he would have to talk to Roger. Well, you put the commissioner in a bind. Now, he's talking about Harold Henderson as a good friend. He came to my party. That was an invite only. And if you were at that party, you're a good friend. Now, if he reduces the suspension or wipes it away, everybody's going to say, well, Jerry's in cahoots with Harold Henderson. If he just shut up, let the process play out one way or another, do what you're going to do after the fact. But he needs to stop talking because he's not doing Zeke any favor on either end. But, Skip, I just don't know how they came to this conclusion. I don't know. On the night that she said Zeke assaulted her, she said, and 2 police officers working off duty at a club said she got into a fight with another female. And for the NFL to say those bruises didn't come from that, they came from this, I don't know how you came to that. And they said, well, they weighed, Commissioner weighed the forensic testimony, Skip. If I hire forensic, you hire your guy. You got a forensics guy, I have a forensics guy. Do you actually think my forensics guy is going to side with you? Do I think your forensics guy is going to side with me? Of course not. So the commissioner, he weighed the forensics guy. Duh. Okay. They hired him. What do you think? What did Zeke's forensic team say? Skip, I can believe. I would have felt a lot better, honestly, if they had said, Zeke, what you did to that young lady on St. Patrick's Day weekend was personal conduct detrimental to the league. We're going to give you 2 to 3 games. Skip, I don't think anybody would have had a problem with that. But I don't know how you get to 6 games with these inconsistencies in her testimony. That's not to say that it didn't happen, but there's just so many inconsistencies in her testimony. I just don't know how we got here.
Okay, just for the record, to restate, she was caught in a lie on the final night in question, but that does not mean she lied about the previous 3 days in question, just for the record. Now, let's go back to the Jerry quote on Harold Henderson. I'm going to read it in full, and then let's go back and forth on it. If we could see it, please. Harold is a really great friend of mine. He was at my Hall of Fame party, and so you weren't at that party unless you were a good friend. I promise you that. He managed the NFL Management Council for maybe 15 years. I served on it. He's very competent, but the main thing is he's a guy that I admire a lot. Former policeman, former attorney. He's come through it the hard way, literally. So when I first read these quotes on, I believe, Sunday night, I was horrified by Jerry opening mouth and inserting foot. Why would you do this? Why would you put Harold Henderson in a can't-win situation where he almost has to bend over backward to look like he's being overly objective on his good friend Jerry Jones? Right. But then as I started thinking about the potential lawsuit, I didn't know if Jerry, he can say stupid things, but he's not dumb, you know, like he's not a dumb guy. So I started thinking, is he trying to present an olive branch up front to just say, hey, remember, we're good friends. Let's work this out. Let's come to some compromise here, my dear friend Harold. But still, publicly, it doesn't put Harold in a very good position because it looks like he'd sell out to his friend Jerry. And from what I heard, I can't remember, did you guys go to the... You didn't go to Jerry's party?
No, no.
But I talked to several people who did, who I can testify here are not great friends of Jerry's. It's like, how many people were at that party? Like thousands? I don't know.
Yeah, at least 2,000.
Right?
That's what I heard, yeah.
So are all those very close friends of Jerry's? I don't know. So it felt like he was going out of his way to deliver a message. Hey, let's try to work this out. Because in the end, I believe that this is going beyond just what Zeke did or didn't do with the accuser. I think they want to make him a new face of domestic violence. I think they want to lay down the law, send a message with Zeke as the face because he's a Dallas Cowboy. And I also think that they know a lot of things that can't be made public. And it's possible now Zeke will go up to New York today and open his heart up and say, you got me on this, this, and this, and maybe he'll come clean about some of these other quote-unquote incidents.
Well, he can't do that, Skip, because if he says I did this, this, and this, it's going to go up.
Well, but I mean in compromise. Like, I admit I did this, this, and this. I admit I got some issues here that I'm going to address. Please be lenient on me. I guess he could present that kind of a case.
Well, he said he didn't do it.
Okay.
That's been his argument the whole time, so he got to stand.
I'm still convinced that even if he didn't do it, that they're trying to get him for all the things that they know he did that he didn't get busted for.
Right.
Like, he has not yet been arrested for any of these things that did or didn't happen that we think happened. Does he have some issues with alcohol or whatever? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Have these been addressed?
No.
No. Okay. So is the NFL trying to sort of lay down the law before he actually breaks a law? You know, maybe. I don't know. But it feels like he's being made an example of here, which is why, gut feeling, bottom line, Harold Henderson is not going to back off. Now, when it comes to the court case, I don't even know I don't know enough about it. Could they get an injunction before September 10th? I doubt it, but I don't know. And it's going to be a race to court. As soon as Harold Henderson rules, maybe he'll wait until the Friday before the season opener at 5 o'clock Eastern time, right? So that they can't file. But it's going to be a race between the NFL and the NFLPA to file in the most advantageous jurisdiction, maybe Dallas, maybe Minnesota, where Judge Doty is, or what, I don't know, or New York City.
Kind of like they did in the Brady, when Brady won the ruling, the NFL already had, first of all, when the suspension came down, they already had it was going to be held in Manhattan because they know Brady was going to appeal. This is okay, we're going to have it in Manhattan.
Correct.
Skip.
And then actually Brady beat them in their backyard.
In their backyard. And then they went to the appellate court and he lost 2-1 because one of the judges says, like, yeah, this is a lot of power, but you gave it to him. So I don't really see how you get around that. If there's something that you didn't like about the situation, you should have argued it before you gave him this kind of power. Skip, for me, I just don't see how you come to an unjust conclusion in the beginning, but somehow come to a just resolution in the end. That's what I just don't see. Skip, and the process is incredibly flawed because although, Harold Henderson, he's supposed to be independent, we know he's not. So Skip, let's just take this for sake. You go to trial. And they says, okay, you're guilty. I said, I want to appeal. Skip, they get 12 new jurors. They don't let the same jurors because if you see the same facts, you're going to come to the same conclusion. Yeah. The same people are arguing the same point. So what if Zeke had a smoking gun, if Zeke had recordings, he should have turned that over in the beginning and maybe we're not here right now.
I'm with you.
So I just don't see what new information is going to be presented. The only thing Zeke can argue is the inconsistency in the policy. And we've heard that from a lot of people. The commissioner is inconsistent in his punishment. One guy gets 2 games, the other guy gets 10 games, one guy gets 14 games, one guy gets 6, another guy gets 1. That's his only argument, Skip, because I don't know if there's any new additional information that can come out that's going to sway this thing heavily one way or another.
Yeah. Well, you can in court you can argue procedural blunders.
Yeah.
Harold Henderson, the fact that the accuser wasn't brought to the appeals process where you could cross-examine, the fact that the NFL was not required in the appeals process to show the notes of all of their findings. These are procedural blunders in the eyes of the NFLPA.
But let me ask you a question, though, Skip. If that's not in that binding agreement, if there's nothing that says they have to present her, if there's nothing in that says we have to turn over the notes, that means nothing. See, the NFLPA wants to approach this like a normal court proceeding. And Skip, is anything but that. We realize the bar is so low. The standard is so low with the NFL because the NFL, you go before the NFL, you're guilty. Now, okay, now prove to us you didn't do it. That's not how it should be, but we know that's how it is. Because Zeke really, because she said it, now Zeke got to disprove what she said.
I got it.
Not that she has to prove that it actually happened. Okay.